Now, the 20% U.S. tariff on Philippine exports taking effect on August 1st isn't just a trade penalty, it's a wake-up call, a direct hit to our export-driven economy, and a stark reminder of how exposed we are to global power plays. But this goes beyond taxes on goods. This is about strategy, sovereignty, and whether the Philippines can compete in a world where economics is now a weapon. So what's at stake for jobs, investment, and our growth story moving forward? Joining us now to break it all down is Dr. JP Rivera, a senior research fellow at the Philippine Institute for Development Studies. Hi, JP, and thanks for joining us via Zoom. I know you're far away from Metro Manila. There's a bit of a lag, but we'll do our best.
Yeah. Hi, good morning, everyone, and greetings from Butuan City.
Okay, JP, the 20% may be the immediate headline, but the real story is what happens next. This tariff, it isn't just a tax, it's a message. From a macroeconomic and geopolitical lens, what signal is the U.S. sending the Philippines and the region with it?
Well, this 20% tariff actually signals the willingness of the United States to use trade as leverage to address its trade imbalances economically. But then the US may also be trying to flex, no? To flex some economic powers to its trading partner regarding addressing the certain trade imbalances that they have.
Yeah, others rely on economic weight. But the Philippines, what are the non-trade levers that we can explore? Because, we don't have that much trade in the context of other ASEAN nations. If you look at it, the Philippines accounts for just 0.2% of U.S. imports, making us one of the smallest trading partners for the United States. What are your thoughts on this, JP?
Well, regarding the economic factors, so this is not just regarding tariff reduction, but then the Philippines can also leverage on our strategic position in Southeast Asia, as well as our historical ties with the United States. And at the same time, the Philippines can also leverage on positioning the country as a reliable trading partner, reliable economic partner, and at the same time, reliable ally in terms of socio-political, eco-political factors going on in the global economy.
JP, we had a story earlier. BMI, the research unit of Fitch Solutions, said that the Philippines may be able to negotiate tariffs lower, perhaps maybe down to the baseline 10%, by offering concessions in the area of defense. What do you think of this non-trade lever?
But the non-trade lever may be effective because the Philippines can actually pitch, no? In allowing the country to become a friend-shoring partner, especially in terms of semiconductors, electronics, and critical minerals. But then other non-economic factors can include the backing of reforms in terms of ease of doing business, supply chain resilience, and of course, research and development.
When you take a look at other countries, and their rates, Thailand and Indonesia are facing 25%, Vietnam 20%. How does the Philippines stack up in this realigned trade landscape?
Well, given those figures, we can see that we are at par with Vietnam at 20%, but below Thailand and Indonesia at 25%. So, relatively speaking, the Philippines is not the worst hit. However, the concern is that we lack what Vietnam has, particularly in terms of strong FTA network and logistics competitiveness. So while we have a lower tariff, we are more vulnerable despite this 20% tariff relative to other economies.
Yeah, that's something that we don't have. We don't have a free trade agreement. We don't have an FTA with the United States. FTAs can help, but Trump's strategy shows that they have their limits. What are your thoughts on this, JP?
Well, they have their limits. That's why the Philippines must also explore other strategic directions other than tariff-related concerns. No? For example, the Philippines can pursue strategic autonomy, no? Where our trade interests are as protected, for instance, with our military alliances. And the trade now can also serve as an indirect pressure for the Philippines, wherein our defense, the Philippine defense pivot to the US, must be matched by stronger economic ties, which should not be taken for granted.
Yeah, the strategy really is diversification. There's a lot of areas that we need to look into. Going ahead, looking at the direct and indirect impact on the Philippine economy, this is going to be imposed on August 1. How many months until we feel the impact, and where will it be felt first?
Well, I would just like to answer that in terms of the direct hit first. No? Electronics, garments, and agri exports are very price sensitive, so the 20% jump will make our products less competitive. And because of this one, we may be able to see contract losses or shift in sourcing by US buyers within 1 or 2 quarters. However, in terms of broader macroeconomic effects, the investment decisions of both foreign and local investors could be delayed, and that manufacturing zones reliant on exports might slow down hiring or expansion. And all of this can happen within 1 to 2 quarters after August 1.
Yeah, and in terms of feeling the effects, JP, talking about the ripple effects through the economy, looks like we're going to be hit perhaps in jobs. That's first and foremost. What are your thoughts on how we're going to get hit by this and how soon we're going to start to feel it in the real economy?
Okay, so given the timeline that we have, as what I have mentioned earlier, investment decisions can be delayed. Manufacturing zones reliant on exports might slow down hiring or expansion, and that foreign investors may pause their plans in the Philippines and look for other tariff exempt economies. But as far as the consumers, the ordinary Filipinos are concerned, the spillover now will come in the form of if factories reduce hours, cut workers because of the lower demand for Philippine exports, the capacity of the Filipino people or the purchasing power may drop, and weak exports may also strain the peso dollar stability, which can feed into our imported inflation. So the spillover effects can come in both macroeconomic, employment, even prices.
Now, JP, President Marcos is going to meet U.S. President Donald Trump on July 20th, Sunday our time, Saturday for the United States. What should the Philippines push for, and what should be a non-negotiable?
Well, for the Marcos-Trump meeting this coming week, the delegation can prioritize on sector-specific exemptions, particularly in garments and electronics, schedule flexibility, and targeted relief for high labor goods. But for me, one of the most critical part would be to push for joint review mechanisms of tariff effects on both the Philippines and the US. And because of this one, there will be some mutual understanding and meeting in the middle regarding this tariff imposition. However, the temporary or long-term pain that this may cause would be depending on the agility of the country, of the Philippines, on how we can renegotiate and diversify and at the same time support affected sectors due to this tariff.
Speaking of the agility of the country, JP, what's the cost of complacency? What will be the effect if we don't do anything beyond this?
Well, timing is of the essence, and if we don't do anything very pronounced today, then our neighboring economies might get ahead faster than the Philippines, and this one will put the Philippines into a less competitive position because, relatively speaking, our neighboring economies are getting ahead in terms of renegotiation and improving their internal economy towards making themselves more competitive compared to us. So the time is right now, and economic stakeholders should get their act together so that we can position the Philippines as an economy that is worthy of trade, of business expansion, even of other trade negotiations.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to position ourselves as the preferred trading partner in the ASEAN, but we've got a lot to do to get that for them to look at us that way. JP, could this, looking at the silver lining, we're hearing all these, the 20% tariffs. What are the silver linings here? What could this be the shakeup that we really need to really push those reforms forward? And what are those reforms that we really need for the world to view the Philippines as the preferred trading partner in the ASEAN?
Well, this tariff imposition by the US, I see this as a great catalytic opportunity that will allow us to finally push us to act on the long pending reforms in logistics, trade facilitation, even export financing. So we need to rethink our industrial policy, go from what we have to what the world needs. And we can do this by exploring new market sectors such as the ASEAN, the Middle East, the European Union, even South Asian economies. No? And we need to beef up reforms in our key sectors such as the IT, BPM, the knowledge process outsourcing, design led exports, the digital goods, health tech, and the creative economy.
Hmm. I like what you said. We have to take a look at what we have in the context of what the world needs. In that regard, JP, where to next? What are the sectors, the markets that offer the biggest potential? Where can the Philippines really seize the opportunity?
Well, opportunities can still emanate from the semiconductors, electronics, garments, and agri-based products, but we can also diversify towards services since the Philippines also exports a lot of our manpower, professionals into the United States. This is not just about tariff reduction, but opportunities to diversify externally and internally.
Hmm. And zooming out, JP, do you see this as a speed bump down the road, or is it a huge structural shift? I mean, policies in the US, they changed, they could change in the coming months. I mean, is this a speed bump, or is this a big structural realignment that we need to think about?
Mhm. Well, for me, I take this from a very optimistic lens. This is just a speed bump, and the US policy tends to be erratic recently, and there might be some changes but the Philippines should always remain to be agile. We should be very quick, very deliberate in renegotiating, buying, and rendering support to affected enterprises or even sectors.
Hmm. Last question, JP. Post August 1st, what would a win look like in your terms?
Well, the win here after August 1 can be in the form of, optimistically, can be in the form of finally a reduced, a reduced tariff. Particularly, we should be able to have some renegotiation, seek exemptions. There will be products that are exempted from this sweeping tariffs. But then the most important here is that the US and the Philippines should be able to renegotiate and restore this relationship that we had for a long period of time.
Yeah, we're looking forward to a restoration of that relationship and perhaps back to baseline 10%. We'll just be watchful of the developments ahead. Thank you so much, JP, for your time this morning.
Thank you so much.